Hello, everyone. Welcome to Academy of Astrology UK. I'm Rhoda Chang, and today with us is Mandy Clay and our usual Marcus. And maybe she will join us in a minute if she see this one is going. Remind her we are online now. Okay. We will communicate with each other by email, say what we should talk about this today. And we come to the idea is very interesting because at this moment, because yesterday was a new full moon, new moon. New moon. Sorry, I was like, yes, there was a new moon, and then this new moon is pretty interesting, like right. I think it triggered that a Saturn Uranus square, and from the T square with it, but it will as it move, it will Mars will square Saturn first. It will meet Saturn and then go to I think it's opposite Uranus. So I think this Mars Saturn square will last for nearly whole week, and it still have some influence until next week while it opposite Uranus. So this we can say this aspect is that kind of will last at least 2 weeks. I mean, but more intense is this week. So what can we expect and what can we do with this aspect, and that how should we prepare for it? So this is a basic idea what we're going to talk about today. That first, I think it's quite nice to see the chart. So I would suggest I use the new moon chart, although the orbit is still a little bit wide between the Mars and Saturn, but we will get an idea. How about that?
Perfect.
Okay, let me go for a new moon chart. I like that, and it's quite interesting. Sometimes if you don't know how to use it, it's like, have you seen it? Have you seen it? I think we all see the chart, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we will see the chart. Cool. You didn't see other things, right? Like my notes or my email.
no, just the chart. Just chart. Right.
Yeah, this is the new moon chart. This is a new moon chart, and on yesterday 9:14 p.m. and we don't go through the whole chart, but we can see from here the sun and moon is on 12 degrees of Scorpio, and the Mars is on 3 degrees Scorpio, and the square Saturn in Uranus 7 degrees. So during next week, this Mars will approach the Saturn and the kind of from the exact, and then once it's square the Saturn, it also start to opposite Uranus, then trigger all these things. I mean, I think this could be seen as the major theme of this new moon about Scorpio, and then Mars is the ruler of Scorpio, and then when also new moon trigger this Saturn Uranus square, and the Mars just push forward. I think it's pushed quite hard, especially when you have Mars. I think this is quite interesting. So let's go very basic, very basic about Saturn and Mars, because we all know they have kind of a very famous name or infamous name about they are in the traditional view they are malefic. Am I saying it right? Malefic.
Yes.
Marcus. Okay. Could you tell us why and why they are malefic, and what can we expect?
Malefic obviously implies bad, but it's really important to remember that they mean bad from. I mean, this sounds like a stupid thing to say, but it's actually kind of profound. But it's important to remember that they're only bad from our immediate human point of view right now.
Okay.
So because the benefic planets, Jupiter and Venus, tend to give us stuff that we think we want, and the malefic planets tend to take away, block, impede, or damage things that we think we want. Any parent knows that what your kid thinks it wants isn't necessarily always the best thing for the kid to have. So it always makes me think of that sort of Taoist myth about the farmer, which I talk about a lot, but if you can Google it and look it up, it's a Taoist legend about the farmer and his son, and his farmer's obviously a Taoist, and his son I think it starts with his son finds some wild horses, and all the neighbors are really jealous, and they're like, oh, that's so lucky, you found all these wild horses, now you'll make loads of money off them. And the farmer says, oh well, we'll see. And then his son, while training the horses, gets thrown off the back of one of the horses and breaks his leg, and the neighbors go, oh no, that's such bad luck, that's so terrible. And the farmer goes, well, we'll see. And then the next week the army come to the village recruiting people, conscripting them to join in with the war on the front, where, you know, almost certain death. And because the guy has broken his leg, they can't conscript him. So all the neighbors are really jealous again. They go, oh, that was really lucky, he didn't get conscripted. So the farmer goes, well, we'll see. And so it goes on and goes on. The point being that sometimes the things that you think are unfortunate and bad turn out in the longer scheme of things to be productive. And the reason I'm saying this is because that tends to be what, in general, malefics in good dignity do. So that's like Mars in Scorpio in its own sign, Saturn in Aquarius in its own sign. The conditions they create, particularly when they're having a fight like they are now, they're approaching to a square, are without a shadow of a doubt unpleasant and harsh. However, the longer term results can sometimes be quite useful, in the same way that discipline is sometimes a useful tool to prevent your kid from stuffing its face with too many cookies, or, you know, or whatever. So it's the kind of thing, and like the conversely with the good planets, the benefics, Jupiter and Venus, they're generally enjoyable, but sometimes you can have too much of a good thing. And all of this is very context dependent. So in particular, it depends on the real life situation. It depends on what the planets are doing in the chart, what houses they rule, what dignity they're in, etc. So all of this is context dependent. But this is just to say, the reason I wanted to say that is because, yes, in traditional astrology, they are the malefic planets, but it is not that they were regarded without nuance in traditional astrology. It's just that there is a very simple understanding that generally we don't look forward to transits of Mars and Saturn because they're usually unpleasant. But that doesn't mean that they are unnecessary.
Yep, and I think it's pretty interesting. We just when we look at this chart, we will notice that Mars is on its own side. The sign is ruled Scorpio, and the Saturn is also on its own side. So that both in one way is not that bad.
It can go, it's an interesting one. It can go either way, because in the tradition, this was sometimes called a war between equals.
A war between equals.
A war between equals. When you have a difficult aspect between two planets that are both strongly dignified, and Mars and Saturn are so opposite in nature, that the one quality that they both have in common is they're both dry, which if you're translating that in psychological terms means they don't give a crap about other people. They're not wet. The moist planets are empathic, but the dry ones, whatever. But Mars is hot and Saturn is cold. So Saturn seeks to constrict, slow down, block, very it's slow and cold, and Mars is hot and fast. So this is just the classic Mars Saturn square is a buildup of frustration and buildup of bottled antagonism can result in all sorts of problems. So you that's the psychological effect. In the real world, it can manifest in all sorts of ways, which hopefully we'll talk about. But that's the vibe.
Yeah, Monday. That's come to Monday, because this is the kind of a square there. And how because I know when we do the astrology interpretation, the planet bring us the idea and the what area they're going to do, but the aspect is more like their relationship or their action. How you explain this square?
Well, an aspect is a conversation between the planets, isn't it? Basically, it's a conversation. They see each other. And a square is, if we're going back to sort of more traditional thinking, a square is a what might be called a hard or a difficult aspect, but it's certainly a dynamic aspect. So dynamism, it creates tension, as has already been alluded to. The tension is created, and that leads to action. And Uranus being here, Uranus is a very provocative planet in many different ways. It provokes things, it sort of shocks and surprises and kind of comes from the left field, for example. So you've got kind of a challenge there, haven't you, with this whole kind of, especially when it's associated with the new moon, which is the start of a new lunar cycle. You've got this real kind of challenge coming up, and what do you do with that? I mean, if Saturn is about your fears, it might be about facing your fears. And again, alluding back to what Marcus said, and that amazing analogy about the Tao analogy about the wild horses and the broken legs, etc. It's through challenges and through going through difficulties that you grow. And I think psychological astrology would say that, you know, any kind of square is potentially a growth aspect, and that might be growth through going through absolute shit, or it might be growth through sort of channeling that really strong energy of Mars or the strong energy of Saturn and using it in a disciplined and focused and very sort of, I guess, controlled way, because I think it is a fixed square. And I think there's something about control, and certainly emotional control with Mars in Scorpio. But yeah, I think one of the factors that could kind of blow anything out of the water is having Uranus there. I mean, we've been living with the Saturn Uranus square for a long time, of course, and Mars, it's not Mars's last turn.
Do you know the phrase, Mandy, that makes me think of is flip the table?
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Very that.
Yeah, it is quite interesting because while we thinking about talking about this topic, and then I just realized if I remember some traditional astrologer, when they study mundane astrology, they use the planetary cycle, and then Mars Saturn is one set of it, and I think it's compared with Jupiter Saturn cycle. But I think I'm not really familiar with Mars Saturn cycle. But this is things like, is it part of this?
Yes, I think. I mean, I'm not a mundane astrologer, as you know, Rod. I've dipped a toe in the water, and I'm going to do more of it in future. So I'm not much more familiar with the larger cycles than you are. But the Mars Saturn, I know in the context of the current world situation, the pandemic, we had the Mars Saturn conjunction in Aquarius just after the start of sort of global lockdown in March. I think it's March or beginning of April 2020.
31st. The exact conjunction is 31st.
Yes, on my birthday, I remember. Yes, 31st
Sorry
of March
about
in 2020. Yeah.
I hope it didn't ruin your birthday.
Well, no, it was fine. It was fine. I mean, whatever. But it was. So that was the Mars Saturn conjunction in Aquarius, and we're coming up to the second Mars Saturn in conjunction in Aquarius in spring next year, which I think is going to be peak global COVID crazy. For all the people who think, oh, the pandemic's over. Well, maybe the worst of the pandemic is past, but I don't think the political ramifications of this pandemic are at peak craziness at all yet. I think that is going to be next spring. And that's going to be the second Mars-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius. It doesn't mean it's going to be the same all over the world. Some countries will be easier, some countries will be whatever. But the point is, this is the closing square of that cycle. So I would expect in this month, because obviously we've got the lunation, the new moon happening, which obviously influences things for a lunar month. You've got this approaching Mars-Saturn square with Uranus in the mix over the month. So that to me is kind of, I mean, we could think about some of the things that Mars could be. Mars could be police forces. Mars could be just general anger among the population. And Saturn, of course, in Aquarius is like social rules, social distancing, policies about borders, that kind of thing. And with the Mars approaching that, it's like in the first opening phase of it, it's kind of like these are the rules and everybody's peed off about them, but the rules are going to win. Like people, the rules are going to be like on top. This way round, Mars is in the 10th sign from Saturn.
Yes.
The rules are strong. They're still being enforced. They still have a logic to them, and there's still a certain amount of they're still going to be followed by a lot of people, but there's going to be much more, I think, overt resistance from people perhaps to some of those rules, and some of that will start to emerge, I think, in this month. But we'll see.
It's quite interesting. What reminded you the recent news, Mandy? Is this situation what you and Marcus mentioned about it? Remind you any things we happened recently?
Well, I just think we're going to get a riffing really off what Marcus was talking about. I think we're going to get a wake-up call soon in terms of actually numbers are growing again in terms of COVID infections. And I think we need to bring back that caution, that Saturnian caution.
Yeah.
And if we the people, so to speak, very Aquarian, of course, the people, don't do it ourselves through sort of social behavior and learning the lessons of the last year and a half, then that will be more enforced. Maybe that's more social distancing, more lockdowns, more office shutting down. And interesting that again that Marcus talked about it being the last square of the cycle between the current cycle.
Yes,
current cycle.
The current cycle. It doesn't stop there. It just keeps on long after we're all gone. It just keeps on turning. But it's the last square of the current cycle between Mars and Saturn. And in mundane astrology, as we know, the themes of the current cycle start at the conjunction, and again Marcus has talked about that, and then you get the first square, so you kind of think, oh, okay, now we need to take some action now, and then you can see the full sort of crisis at the opposition, which is like a full moon, so everything's lit up. But I think the final square, I think the crisis kind of creeps up on you. Potentially, so I think something is creeping up on us, especially as it's happening under the dark of the moon. So,
and do you know what the other the phrase that's just popped into my head, Mandy, is the turn of the screw.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's kind of like that. Exactly. And whatever side of your political views on stuff like lockdown, whether you think there needs to be more careful following of the rules, or you think no, sod the rules, whatever, I think what this is showing is a build up of tension, and I wholly agree with your analysis, Mandy. That's probably what's happening, particularly in the northern hemisphere, as the numbers of COVID start to go up again.
Yes, we're
going to get some, but this time the difference is in this waning part of the cycle, just because in this part of the cycle Mars is on top, so it's kind of like when Mars is on the bottom, Saturn is strong, but I say this is a war between equals. The rules are strong, but I think this time there's stronger, the rebels, if you like, that are kind of maybe have more weight on their side, or maybe that so it's interesting. The fact that Mars is in Scorpio is interesting. It's not Mars in a fire sign. It's not Mars in an earth sign. So earth sign would be like building barricades and stuff. Fire sign is setting stuff on fire. Water sign Mars, Scorpio Mars, is just quietly disobeying. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of vibe, I think. But the Uranus may make it less quiet.
Yeah. Also, I think because from this weekend, Mercury will move into Scorpio too, and going to join this battle.
Yeah.
So we will see the media, island media, traffic, student, join this kind of force is going to join. And
could I interject a slight note of positivity?
Yeah, okay, please.
Because there are going to be two mitigating factors here. The one is that Jupiter is still co-present with Saturn. Now we know Jupiter isn't particularly strong in Aquarius, but just the fact that Jupiter is in the same sign as Saturn alleviates some of the harshness that can happen with Saturn present on his own. And Venus is about to enter Capricorn, and will actually be sextiling Mars from Capricorn with reception, because Capricorn is Mars's exaltation, so Mars likes things in Capricorn. So Venus will be sextiling Mars while it's squaring Saturn.
Yes.
Well, applying to a sextile of Mars.
So, anyway, you're right.
So yeah, I checked. So I think the idea there is that while it's not, there is going to be this growth of tension and some unpredictable outbursts of something in terms of perhaps regulation or people's responses to it. I think it will be kept from complete unruliness by this. There's a little pacifying influence of Venus and Jupiter, just toning it down a bit, which is really necessary and really helpful. And I have to say, I'm very, very grateful for, because my ascendant degree is 12 degrees of Scorpio. So I'm really happy about that, because last time this Saturn Uranus square did a number on me earlier this year. So we shall see.
It's quite interesting. So Mandy, how do you see this kind of because this aspect Mars moving is going to a square Saturn, and then next going to opposite Uranus, a kind of a trigger whole thing about Saturn Uranus square. How you see this trigger things going to happen now?
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, I think the first sort of cliche that's true to a large extent with Mars and Uranus is something about accidents, something about needing to be careful, something about sort of anything could kind of happen. Surprising. If you think about Mars, Mars is very physical. It's about action, it's about weapons, it's about energy, it's about courage. So recklessness, I think, is something under Mars Saturn that we need to be wary of. Being careful, for example, and Saturn can help there, of course. So that's one of the sort of classic things with Mars Uranus, and I think Mars Uranus contacts sometimes are to be feared, but I don't like to think about people think it's something to fear. I don't like to think about instilling fear into my astrology. But the thing is, with Uranus, you can't really predict what's going to happen. It's one of the hardest things to predict, because I think the term sort of left field was used, and anything could happen, really.
It's quite interesting, because during the conference I was chatting with Deborah Holding, and we were talking about, suddenly she just start talking about like people making prediction about the Uranus, but no matter how hard you try, because the Uranus theme is unpredictable.
Yes, spot on.
And I like the idea that and you try harder, it's still going to jump out of the box for you.
Totally.
Well, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, I agree with Deborah, and I agree with you, Mandy. I think that's 100% the case, isn't it? It's always the thing that you don't expect. And I have Uranus conjunct my ascendant. I'm my Uranus opposition now. So I usually quite enjoy Uranus transits, usually when they're not picking up both Saturn and Mars simultaneously, but usually because they bring something different, It's like, they break things up and bring something different. I think the only thing that makes you think of with the Saturn Mars aspect would be there are two phrases that occurred. One was hasten slowly. One was hasten slowly. So in other words, and there's a I don't know if this is a Yorkshire phrase, but it's from my childhood, more haste, less speed.
Yeah,
which really means do you know what I mean?
I grew up with that one as well.
Right. Yeah.
Please tell me what's
more
that
haste, less speed. Same thing. It's kind of like slow down, stop rushing, but work fast, but be more efficient. Be more efficient. Focus on what you're doing. Concentrate on what you're doing. Look at the road. Stop looking around. Stop going, I need to get there. Focus on what you're doing. And I think that's what a Mars Saturn aspect is asking you to do. You need to narrow your focus. You need to restrict your focus and concentrate on what you're doing. So if you run into difficulties and your inclination is to start screaming or cursing your life, or just generally shaking your fist at the gods and saying, this is really stressful, stop it and slow down and focus on what you need to do. So it's that hasten slowly. Focus on the work.
Perfect.
Yeah. Exactly.
I have again another slightly more positive sort of reading.
Good.
So if you think about Mars courage, so having courage and discipline and hard work. With Saturn can lead to breakthroughs. Uranus.
Yes, yes. I mean, it could. I really think, given that both Mars and Saturn are in their dignities, I love that, Mandy, because I do think that there is a positive potential, even if the process is stressful, or the event may be stressful, the result could well be positive, because both of those planets are dignified, and Jupiter and Venus are going to be peripherally, but still there, sort of just sprinkling a little bit of fairy dust on it and making it not quite so bad. So I think I like that. I like that a lot. I think that's a really good point, because it's kind of like the emotional drive of that Mars in Scorpio, the emotional intensity of it. I need this. I want this. And the Saturn in Aquarius of just like, well, follow these rules and do it this way and follow the social codes. And it's kind of like, if you can adopt that methodical approach and harness your drive, you could get amazing things could happen potentially. So
cool. Thank you, everyone, because I think this set aspect is like a kind of a pretty hard. It's not easy, but it could bring the good outcome if we really follow this kind of a Mars and Saturn's way. And also, don't forget, this is a square, so you're working really hard. And Marx and Monday suggests, focus on the things. I think that's how you get work done.
Yeah, and remember the Taoist farmer thing. So if the broken leg doesn't always turn out to be bad luck.
Yeah. That's in Chinese. I think we call it 塞翁失马焉知非福. Yep. Sorry, I can't.
I can't. Sai what?
I love that.
What? Anyway,
again, I love that.
Yeah, really. 塞翁失马焉知非福. That's a. Wow, you nail it. Yeah. Okay. So it's exactly the story you described. I was like listened up since my childhood.
Brilliant.
Yeah, but it's true. It's always in our tradition. It's always tell you like when you kind of in a station of a misfortune, and you may not know it's going to bring something good to you. So don't be upset at that moment. You don't know what that's going to bring it to you. So it's kind of quite interesting when you start to talk about that story. I say, yeah.
Okay. The one other thing, Rod, because I know we're out of time, so I'm going to keep this super brief. Isn't that lunation this month on Alphecca, the fixed star Alphecca?
Lunation, this one on the, let me check.
Moon.
This new moon.
12 degrees. I thought that 12 degrees Scorpio was near Alphecca, or is it a bit far away? Alphecca's around 11.
11, I think. Yeah. Should we go to check the report?
Yeah, reports, star aspects of the reports.
Yes. Maybe a little bit. Oh, yes, Alphecca. Yes, both Alphecca. Yes, Alphecca.
So that's quite a positive fixed star. Yeah, we can't see the report for some reason, Rod. We can only see the star,
sorry. Okay,
yes. No. It is. So it's conjunct Alphecca. So that's quite an interesting thing. That just means that even though there's all this hard stuff going on, I would say that new moon conjunct Alphecca, it's kind of like bringing something positive in as well.
Yeah, okay. It's quite interesting because I will get another 3 minutes more because you just trigger my fixed star. Okay, Alphecca. You know how I call Alphecca? My one sentence for Alphecca.
Go on.
You cannot always get what you want.
But you get what you need.
Exactly.
The Rolling Stones song.
Yeah, exactly. You know why? Because when I study fixed star, because I have an idea when I read the whole story about Alphecca, the diadem of the Ardiani and this and that. She want to marry Tithys or this one and that one. She want to follow them, but they abandon her. But what she get? She get Dionysius. Dionysius marry her. So that's, sorry.
Who did she get?
Dionysius, the god of wine. wine making.
Oh, what, like Bacchus?
Bacchus in
Dionysus,
Roman.
yeah, Bacchus,
Dionysius.
Dionysus.
Sorry, my
Yeah.
pronunciation.
No, yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
Got it.
So she won a hero. She won a Theseus or other Greek hero, but she didn't get it. But she got Dionysius. So I kind of,
okay.
ooh, you don't know what you're going to get. Maybe they abandon you, but there's something more important waiting for you there. And then very interestingly, because we say that Mandy, which music group sing this song?
You don't always get what you want. You get what you need. Yeah, it's a Rolling Stones song.
Rolling Stones song.
Because you always get what you want.
Rolling Stones, isn't that a little bit Miles Saturn? Eh?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, and also quite interesting. When they first record this song, I think the if I use the so-called of a parent, the Bentley Brothers fixed up parent method, that song, I think the son was kind of a parent co-rising ish with Alpheka. And then when they released this song, also Alpheka was taking very important position. So that's why I say that really make me like always remember when people say Alpheka, I say you cannot always get what you want.
But you get what you need.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I think that's the best advice to come out of this particular podcast, and I think
it's so
a strong theme has emerged, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's so interesting. If Marcus didn't mention that, I would just like, okay, we finished.
That's good. Between the three of us, I think that did a job. All right, good.
Yeah, okay, thank you, everyone. I think today is our it's surprise outcome. We're talking about all these kind of things, and it's very interesting. So next week, we're going to do our live stream podcast, and then we may talk about, I don't know, we may talk about the Saturn Uranus square, or we maybe do a little bit, study about lunar eclipse is coming soon, and then we step into the eclipse season. Ooh, hotter and hotter. So we will see, and stay in tune. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good week.
Let me stop share and